and the organization is here, and the programs that we are doing now through the Latin Chamber of Commerce and through the foundation continues to be here in for many years to come.
Where do you see yourself after the transition?
Well, what I intend to do is I still going to be I probably will be if health-wise I continue to have a good health, I will probably be involved, be an advisor, but be a consultant for other things that I want to do. I have an interest, for example, in having more minority firms, having concessions at the airport, for example. For example, I visited Cuba back in 2009, and I went with a group of Cubans from Miami that were selling food to Cuba and agricultural products to Cuba. So I went to that particular event. I had the occasion by doing that to be able to visit my home in Cuba, in Havana, and also my grandparents. They are no longer there, of course, but I wanted to go back to my house. So I knock on the door, the people that live there say, can you allow me to see inside? And they allow me to see inside too.
What was the first service project you remember working on in your life?
Oh, I think probably as a Vista volunteer working with poor people in Leominster and Fitchburg. That was a long time ago, but that's one of the things. We used to make $25 a week, and they would put it on the side. So you will have some money when you came out of that particular program. And then we would live with the families used to give us the food and housing, all of that. And I think it was rewarding. I think it gave me, which I still have, even though I got involved in business or trying to help a small business and so forth. Especially these days that we had a recession and people really lost quite a bit. To be sensitive to what's going on in the community, in the state, in the country. I think it's very important that we do something for our fellow being, and I think the things that we're doing, trying to get people jobs, trying to convince an employer to hire that individual that have the skills, and then we will help your employer now that you are having difficulty by paying part of that person's salary for a number of weeks, a number of months, is something that is worth pursuing.
Do you have a particular spiritual practice?
I don't. I think that's one of the things that really I lack. I don't have that type of. I think sometimes at home, when, for example, I was married. My wife died in 2006. We were married for 32 years, and then now I live alone. Sometimes I look at my life and so forth, and then I sometimes go to church. I live very close to a Catholic church right there at the Pueblo, development. But I'm not into I'm not that spiritual.
One of our viewers was either traumatized by the faith group in which they were raised, or perhaps they weren't raised in any faith group at all. But they hear people talking about spirituality, a higher power, and all that, and they find that attractive. But maybe they have a strong resentment still. Is there a beginner's spiritual practice that you can suggest that might help them break through that shell they have?
I think one of the most important things that you can have, a person can have, is the relationships that he has, or which he has, with other individuals that they meet at work or in social gathering and so forth. I think that's something that has helped me tremendously.
Neither of these two people has ever done anything for anyone or anything outside of their own narrowly defined self-interest, which they might include their children or whatever, but nothing else. No outside interest. You can speak to them either together or separately. Why would these two individuals want to be of service to someone or something other than themselves?
I think one of the problems that those two individuals will have, and I think they have to have a certain emptiness in their soul, as a human being. I think there is nothing more important, I think, aside from be a successful father, for example, a family man, or successful in terms of your jobs, or the job or your employment and so forth, of your relationship with your wife, and is that I think it's a certain emptiness if you don't contribute to other with other human beings to a cause, a definite purpose. And I think that's very important. I think if you don't do that I think it's a certain emptiness that you will have in your life. And I think, I don't know how you will fulfill it. Maybe you can and so forth, but I think this is very important. Even if you are a very successful businessman, a very successful individual, a person, or you might have struggling, like you mentioned, and so forth. I think one of the things that you might be able to get out of that struggle is by being able to, even in that capacity where you are having a lot of problems, be able to get involved and do something for others, and I think that all of that will pay back. I think you get it back, I think. I have always been I know that this is nothing that I'm saying that is new, but it's something that is true. That is true.
What could they expect, these same two viewers, to get out of being of service to someone or something else?
It's not so much that you expect anything back. I think that alone is very rewarding. When people, for example, I was talking, as a matter of fact, this happened just recently, where a friend of mine, that we talked quite a bit, he was saying that he went and helped, he was trying to sell a house to this individual and so forth, or sold the house, was trying to sell this house for this lady that her husband divorced her and so forth, had a daughter with 3 kids that had come from California. And this person this lady was totally depressed. The lady that had 3 kids, her daughter came from California, and she was now divorcing her husband, And she had also divorced her husband with 3 kids. And he was able to, at that time, he was going to sell a house, her house. And he met this lady, and then he brought this lady over here, for us to try to get her a job. And we have been very successful with this family, and now that family has a job. She has a job, and she rented an apartment. So I think that is very important. I think you can make the type of work that you have, even though in this case you are only like a broker or real estate. You can really impact other human beings by the actions that you take, and be able to move and be able to have the relationship that you have created to be able to help others.
One of our viewers was inspired by what you've said, but they're afraid. They don't want to dive in head first. They'd like a, get your toesies wet kind of a service project. Is there something you could suggest for them?
Well, the only thing I could suggest is what we do. We have the Latin Chamber has a number of programs, all the way from business-related programs to, we have committees. Get involved with us. Come and observe. Come and see what's going on in our. For example, we are having we have meetings on. We are going to be now placing, like I mentioned to you, we're going to be placing close to 200 kids in the work experiences. Be part of that committee. Be part of that group. See if you have a few friends that might open doors for us to place these kids. These kids are disadvantaged kids. These kids are kids that have had some problems, that are poor kids in many instances. So we have to first place them in because we don't want to have a kid sitting let's say, for example, if you are helping this kid and you're going to put him to work in your office or in your company, we don't want him to be sitting, doing nothing. I think we want him to learn something. That 20 hours that he's there, we want it to be something that will be worthwhile. So you can help us, or you can get involved in many of the committees that we have and contribute and see if it's something that you can do in order to help this individual, help us, and help yourself.
If you knew that you could not fail, if I were able to issue you an ironclad 100% guarantee of success for your next project, what would you attempt?
Well, I think I probably could. I probably will. Perhaps, many people have said to me in many instances, "Why don't you get involved in politics? Why don't you run for office?" I probably will do that. I will probably.
What office would you run for?
Well, I think it's something that would be more of in Washington. I think I could make.
So, U.S. Congressperson?
A U.S. Congressperson. So I thought I could. I want to believe if I can have a guarantee that I can get a job, I want to believe that I would not be enthused, or would be that I can actually change what's going on in Washington at this time. Me with others, obviously there are many people that have tried and have never been successful. So, but I think if I could, I would like to be there like 8 years or 12 years, and be able to see if I could have an impact.
Let's pretend for a moment that all 7 billion of us are going to watch this video.
Okay.
What would you say to us?
Well, I think what I will say is that I think we have a chance of survival. That we could. I think we have a chance that we can actually make it, that we can actually get along. I think we have the conditions by which we perhaps could be successful. Not only us, but everyone. But we need to work together and be able to get to develop relationships. The only way that we could develop those relationships is by be able to get people to a certain standards that will benefit me at the same time that I will benefit you. So I think it's a chance out there for us to be able to be successful, to be able to get together. But we all have to work hard to be able to actually make it as a unit.
Who are your heroes?
He's my father. Because my father worked all his life. He was really not a very well educated individual, but he had smarts, so he came from the interior of Cuba, and then he formed a cooperative of buses, to be able to have bus lines, in Havana. So he was able to get other individuals to invest, and eventually he became my family was an upper middle class family in Cuba, And when Castro came, he took everything from him. And eventually, he left with just a suitcase, And I said, I lost everything, his money. I remember my father saying, when other individuals that were perhaps smarter that way saying, listen, Raul, that was his name, Raul, said, listen, what's going on here is that this is going to be a communist state. They're going to take everything from you. If you have any money, put some money in Florida, send it to Miami, because I think we're going to lose everything. So he always, and then there were people that were saying, I think you're going to end up in jail because, and my father said, I never did anything wrong here. I mean, why should I go to jail? Why should they take my properties? He never believed that would happen. So eventually all of that happened. So he left, and then when he showed up in Miami with his wife, he was a beaten man. When he got there, even though he was still he was probably 49 years old, 50 years old. He could not, some of the people that he helped turned their backs on him. He was a very proud man, so eventually he ended up working in Miami Beach at the Duville Hotel as a busboy first, then as a waiter. And he spent 20 years before he retired working there. And then after he retired, he lived maybe another 10 years, and then he died. And he was, when you compare him in Miami to what he was in Cuba, he was like a different type of person. So one of the things that I resent about the revolution really is that because they didn't take anything from me, I never did anything in Cuba. But my father did, and he lost everything. And in many instances, he thought that perhaps that he had lost the respect of his family because he was the backbone of that family. There were other 2 brothers, and he was never was able to be the same person again. And then my brother was a person that helped me tremendously. When I met him after I finished high school, I met him in New York because I lived with them, in a very small. It was a very small apartment, and then they are the ones that with his wife, to really open my eyes. I was making some money. I was making, I was working. I was making maybe $55 a week at that time. I was also working after hours, in the same place and so forth. And I was sending, my brother's the only thing I want you to do, I don't want you to give me any money. Send half of what you make to your father in Miami. Okay, so for 3 years I sent my half of my salary to him. But he thought it was important for me to go to school, and that's what I did.
Thank you so much for conducting the interview with me.
It's a pleasure, sir.